Hello, welcome. My name is Veldboom, and this is another video from Veldboom Studios. And in this tutorial, I'm gonna add on to the V6 engine block that we made the previous week. And basically, what we're gonna do in this video is add the oil pan, but I also want to make it to a dry sump system. So I'm gonna make some like excavation pumps and stuff in there. And also we're gonna add on to it with the cooling channels and everything. Basically, we're gonna do a whole bunch of things that are kind of like lubricant management and water cooling and lubrication and stuff, and add those onto the motor. Let's get into it. First and foremost, what I'm gonna do is actually create another part based on this design. So I'm gonna select this top surface, or the side surface I should say, and add new part to it. And from this surface, I'm gonna also make a sketch using the circle tool, aligning the rotation point for the crankshaft and the outer wall of the actual engine block. So let's also convert entities on those to make them a little bit more narrow. So let's keep those at about 1 centimeter. I think in real life it would be a little bit, less less thick than that, but we can add and change that in a later stage. So let's make that half pipe from that surface up until that one right there. And that is basically the first part of the oil pan that we need. Then usually I select this surface and kind of convert entities on the bottom sketch of the engine block, so that you get the spaces and everything in there for the crankshaft to rotate on. But also what we need to do, add on a little bit to that, is to actually like cut these center sections out, because we basically need to make it a hole and stuff. So we're just gonna cut the hole out from the side instead. Let's go and then trim all of those lines out of there, and that's basically the trim entities. So I don't think I've used it before, but with that you can kind of like cut into the lines and everything that you need. And then we're gonna select that sketch. I don't really need that line, and then we're gonna go up to surface, and then we can select that surface right there to kind of make sure that everything encloses it. And then also what we're gonna add is the hole finally for the crankshaft actually rotating. There we go. And then also usually there's like a flat bottom to it, because at the bottom of the connecting rod basically, or at the bottom of the oil pan I should say, this is where the oil will be connected. So what we're basically going to do is make a system that can basically like pump that oil out to make sure that it kind of keeps at a certain level. And so to do that, I'm going to make 3 points within the bottom section of the oil pan that will kind of like sit from here, go to the right or left. At this point it doesn't really matter too much, but this is going to be like asymmetrical, because the pump for the actual motor oil is going to sit on one side of the motor. You're not going to have like the dual pump setup, at least not in this case. So what I'm going to do is click on the oil pan again, click on edit, and then find the, let's say the right plane. That will be good. And then we can basically click on these interior surface walls. I don't think the actual surface will work, but if you select these lines, I think that will be fine. Here we go. And then for the final section, and then you can kind of see like the whole thing spaced out to where the middles will also be. And then let's say we trim those entities off, and then we can actually also find the middle section. And let's say one of those like bumps is about like 3 centimeters in diameter, so let's make it like 15, and then we can make this one line up with the bottom. So let's say tangent, but let's keep that at 15 radius. And then we can basically take this one and place it over here as well. And then from that point forward, we can extrude these circles. But now they're up to surface, so let's keep it up to surface, but let's start them from the side. Why isn't it showing the third one? But we're gonna start it from this vertex right here. Here. Why isn't it showing the third one? There we go. And this would basically be then the pipes that will kind of allow for the fluids to be pumped out as soon as we kind of need them to. So to not actually make them pipes and hollow, so we're gonna select offset entities, reverse it. Let's make it like 3 millimeters for the outer wall. And then we can copy and paste this right here. And basically cut extrude those out up until this surface. And those would basically be your motor oil, like excavation pumps, in order to get all of that motor oil out as soon as they've kind of been injected back into the system. And then we would also need to have like a mount that we would place here and that we can actually attach the motor oil pump to. But I think I'm gonna make that in a later stage when I'm actually working on also the belts and everything for the connecting rods and stuff like that, you know, when we're working on the cylinder heads. So no, for now I'm just keep it like that. And then usually it depends on how you would make this, if it would be like a CNC cast or a CNC milled piece or like a casted part, but you would have these fillets or stuff that you would be putting around these tubes, something like that. And then what I also need to do is I actually need to add an ability to bolt this down to the motor block, you know, so that we would actually have like because there's a lot of like rotational forces and everything on this centrifugal or centrifugal forces on the crankshaft and everything, so I need to really like clamp the bottom end to the top end of the motor. So what we're gonna do here is actually create like a bolt pattern that we can use for that specific purpose. So let's put it like that, and then we place like two, let's say 4 millimeter radius, so that would be like a M8 bolt or something, something like that. And let's make it a little bit consistent. Let's say 8 again, and let's say these are 30 millimeters apart, and maybe 40 should be better. 40. And let's say it is about like 7.5 millimeters from this sidewall right there, or from this dot, I should say. Let's make it 10. I think that will be somewhat centered. And then we can basically take this and duplicate it to the whole, to the other parts. Oh no, that's not going to work like that. And then we need to mirror that to the other side, so then we can use like the center point of the engine block, and mirror entities, mirror about this line right here, and there you go. So basically now I can cut extrude those, all of those circles. So that would kind of give us all of the holes that we would need, but as you can see, it would kind of be hard to thread a hole down if it's not like flush on the surface. So what you can also do is go back into the part and drag it just right above the cut hole that we have right here. This is like the roll bar that you can kind of select the stage of your design that you want to be in, so that you can kind of hide the last move that you just made. And then we can also extrude basically this same shape that you have here, but we don't want it to kind of like interlink with so what we can do now is actually like drag this through everything. I don't know if it should be like through everything, but let's see. We can probably like keep it a couple of millimeters like above the top center. That should be about 150, I think, or like 80 then. Yeah. And obviously you won't really be able to see like that top. Let's make it 85. And then it kind of like defeats the purpose of making the holes for the drainage pumps and everything. So what we can then also do is take that hole and drag it below the boss extrude that we just made. But then we kind of need to add it, I think. So that way, by kind of dragging that action below the actual boss extrude and everything, you know, it kind of helps to kind of figure that out and to align everything the way it should. Anything else I should add? Let's also do that to the other side, by the way. Otherwise it probably wouldn't make sense too much. So let's take this sketch again. And also convert entities for those, and there you go. And I think that now starts to look more and more like a recognizable engine block in a sense, I guess. So here we have then the 3 ports that can actually like take all of the motor oil and everything, and then we're also gonna need to make like on the engine block itself a place where it can actually be dispersed. But before we're gonna do that, let's also add like the water channels and everything to the engine block itself. So for the water cooling, we're going to add to the existing engine block. So click on the engine block again and add it, and click on edit components. First things first, we need to add also the actual like guide paths and everything for the water to flow through. So I'm going to add a couple of fillets to this line right here, and ensure that there's actually like not too many crevices and things like existing in that space. And also that's why I think a V6 is kind of like the perfect size to make, because the larger you're just gonna make it, it's gonna add like levels of complexity and stuff to it. And let's see. So now what we're gonna do is take that shape, and we're gonna need to duplicate a couple of things from the left side to the right side. So I'm just gonna do it on this bank of cylinders, and then you can just copy the same moves again on the other side. But today, in this case, all I'm gonna add is just simply like the water channels and everything. And let's say for that, I'm gonna keep a distance of about 10 millimeters between the offsets and everything. And let's say that is about another 5 millimeter wall between those. And this is now going to be the actual wall where all of the things will be attached to. Sorry, where all the water will flow through, I should say. So this is basically like the channel that the water will flow through, and as you can see, like here, there's a hole where it can escape. So we need to also extrude the wall a little bit more to go beyond that point. But I was waiting until this point basically to actually see how far I should extrude that part. But that is basically like the first part, because in this channel then the water will kind of be able to then flow through everything like I mentioned. But we now also need to look into like how we will kind of like consider that flow, you know, because and what also would be the front and the back side of the engine in a way, because from here on out we're going to need to make some decisions on where we should locate certain things and everything. So I'm just going to say like this is the front part of the engine and this will be the back part of the engine, and the way to identify that is with the motor oil, like how do you call it, the pumps and everything sitting on the right side of the engine. And that is basically how I'm going to identify it. So here from the front, I want to let cooling water in, and here from the rear, I want to let out the hot water that has already like been through the cycle. And there's a couple of ways of going about it, and also how you can create like that flow within the system. So let's just see how we can like start to do something like that. For me, the first part is going to be to actually make the water inlet, and for that I'm gonna create like a flat surface to the side here, but let's make it somewhat centered from that circle. So up to there, and let's say it is about like 25 millimeters that direction, and then like 50 here. Let's keep that centered. And then I'm gonna do a bi-directional line, like 2 millimeter, let's say 3, 4. And that is basically gonna be the surface from which we can basically drag the rest of the thing out. I'm just gonna do this surface now that I think about, or I think I should do both. So then you can select both of these. Something like that would be sufficient. So now that we've created this surface, we actually have like a sketch plane to work on. I could have just made a plane, I guess, but you know, sometimes it shit just works like that. And then I can take the middle point, drag like a line straight down, do the same from this line right here. I think I need to select it again, and then find its middle point somewhere here. And then you have this intersecting points, and let's say I'm gonna make this 25 millimeters in radius. And then I'm gonna offset those entities by, let's say 15, let's say 12.5, something like that. And then from these circles, I'm gonna make it like 10 millimeters, and that's where the actual hosing and the pipes and everything will be bolted down to. And then let's make it like a 3 millimeter radius screw pattern hole or something. And then I'm gonna make it like a 35, let's say 30, I think will be good. 30 millimeter radius for the actual circle that it will fit in. And then we can extrude boss base like all of those surfaces that we select for the actual piping and everything. Here we go. And then up the surface, so it will kind of fall perfectly to the side of the wall. And then there you have like the first attachment that you would need to actually have some plumbing and everything attached to the motor. And now we're gonna make also a hole to make sure that the water can actually flow through it. Let's see right there. And then we will need that one to go up to that surface and that continue on into the actual sidewall itself. But I'm actually also gonna add one more thing to it, that cut extrude that it just made, and that is this little tab that I actually used to kind of make the, how do you call it, to make the sketch surface. So I'm gonna add that to the actual sketch, use to convert entities also on those. And then from that point forward, you can see that now has been cut through completely, but that was not intended. Also, yes, I guess I do need to make it into two separate. Yeah, I can just like stitch this back up again this way. I guess it doesn't matter too much. But like, you know, also, so like I said in the previous video, that kind of is the freedom that you have within SolidWorks to kind of do it your way. Multiple ways of going about it that will get you the same result. So that is basically now the first component. Let's also add some fillets and stuff to the basic engine block. So before I even place those, because I feel like those will interfere with each other a little bit. Let's add this fillet curvature also to it. And these shapes, by the way, also make engine blocks like extremely strong shapes and everything, because it's just a lot of like circular shapes and different angles standing against each other. So yeah, so also if you sometimes you see that some car manufacturers use the motor to actually also mount the suspension components to it, or as a structural member of the frame and everything, and that's basically why, because all of these circular shapes kind of interacting with each other make for an extremely strong structure. So then we can take this bar again, put it back in the rollback state, and then you'll see like now these kind of come into play. And then also for this surface, I'm going to add some fillets to it and the corners here. Also make it a little bit of a surface area for like gaskets and stuff if you want to prevent like leakages. All that type of stuff kind of comes into play when it comes to making these type of parts, especially if you're dealing with like fluids that are pumping through a surface and stuff, you know. So that is the first part. And then so basically what we'll have is also the same like right here, and then there will be one pump, like a pipe that's splitting into two, that is feeding like cold engine air or cold engine water that has just been through the radiators right in here. And then that will be able to kind of like flow through all of the cylinders, and then there will be like an extraction point right here. So that is also the next thing that we're gonna make, is basically the same thing but then end up making it here. So what we're gonna do for that is actually take this and click on extrude cut, click on convert entities. Let's also use the actual bolt patterns and everything, and also the hole itself in the convert entity, so we have all of those dimensions already lined up. And then we're gonna take this middle point to basically transfer it over to the other side. Mirror entities to mirror, those are these, and we want to mirror that about that point right there. We don't need it to copy, we just need it to be transferred to that side. And now we can basically boss extrude it up to this surface again, but we don't want it here. We want it to actually offset like so, and let's say it's like 135, I think, then something like that would be kind of similar to what we have on the other side. And then we need to cut it, cut the hole out. And there you go. Also, let's add the fillet to it as well. Or what you can also do is basically take the fillet and drag it below the latest pieces that we just added, and then right click it, add it, and then also add it to this part. That we can kind of like use less moves in total to kind of get the same thing accomplished. I don't know if that makes the files larger, or if you have like a taller feature tree. I have no clue. I should test it actually, but we'll see. But just in case you haven't picked up, then the cold like water that just been through the radiator will kind of like flow through all of these and then exit here. And then I was also thinking like maybe you can add like channels to kind of guide it better and make sure that the flow is kind of like optimized internally, in order to kind of also use the least amount of cooling that you actually require to do so. But there's still like a lot we can figure out and get into in later parts of the video. The next thing that I do want to get into are the actual bolts that are gonna attach also the cylinder head to the engine block. So those usually sit right within these sections to kind of also like separate and the power points and everything, or the stress I should say. So those will be quite significant, you know. So those are also like strong bolts. Let's use like a M10 pattern or something, and also make like a 10mm outer ring. And then I'm gonna use these on the same points that we've kind of like added those to. And then for the next part, I'm just gonna make it like intersect right at that point. And let's also do the same right here. You could also make a pattern which is kind of like equal left to right and everything, so that you can also like make the how do you call it, the cylinder heads a little bit more modular in a sense. But you know, for this case I think I'm just gonna make it a little bit more custom. Like so. And then basically what we can do from here is drag them down all the way to the bottom section. All the way to this half circle again. And then we also need to cut extrude all the holes, obviously, you know, same kind of pattern. So just use the same sketch, click on convert entities, and then take all of those bolts out. And let's make that like, you know, let's just keep it up to surface again, I guess. Yeah. And now that we've cut all of those holes out, it starts to look more and more like an engine block, yeah, like you would see it in real life, I guess. And that is also like the purpose of this video in particular, to kind of get that resemblance, but also make it in a way where these bolts are actually in there, so that we can also 3D print it and actually produce it, you know, because that is kind of what I feel like also these tutorials should have, is that we also kind of showcase the process of actually making this a reality. So that is gonna come like after the complete engine is finished, but you can look out for that. I'm gonna 3D print everything that you see here, but at scale. So we're gonna change it before we print it as well, but you'll see. And let's see, what am I forgetting before I move on to the next part? I think this is everything for the engine block. I think maybe look like the motor oil channels, but I could do that once I've also added the other side. I think that will be better. So yeah, next I'm gonna basically do everything I did here and then duplicate it onto the other side. But I'm looking at a method that I could use to kind of expedite the process a little bit. I think I know what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna add the fillets also to the bolt patterns. Can I select all of these at once? I think I can. There you go. Let's make that like a 10mm radius if possible. There you go. And now with that in place, let's select this face again. And also, because we have added like these bolt patterns and stuff, there's usually like some cross members that engineers end up making between all of these like lattice works and stuff. And I'll show that in a second. And it will kind of allow a little bit more rigidity between the actual piston walls themselves and the outer wall of the engine block. And I'll basically use offset entities both directions, and let's say 7.5, something like that. And then offset entities again, select this surface, and inner loops 1 by 1 selected, again select that one. And then from that point forward, we can basically extrude all of these shapes. And let's make that about like, let's say 10mm go into the engine block. There you go. And then also I will always kind of like add a fillet to also all the sharp corners. I think that will be good, but like let's say it's only like 3 millimeters or something. I think there are a couple of double lines in there. And that was actually the perfect one to take out, I guess. Something like that. I guess it's still not gonna work. Let's take all of these out. We can add those at a later stage. And then keep this at 5, 10, 8, somewhere. There you go. And then these holes, the reason why I don't really like fully close it off, because you actually maybe could even, but these holes would then allow the water to kind of flow also into the cylinder head, because with the cylinder head there's also like a lot of hot exhaust gases coming in and stuff like that, you know. So you kind of want to maintain that at a lower temperature. But it might also be cool to kind of look at that if you have like maybe close it off at this end of the motor, because here only the air intake will be coming in, so you don't need to have like maybe like warm water running through it, and I don't know, we'll see. But that is the first part, and basically now what I want to do is copy this until this section and then just extrude everything at once. Oh, but for that I could actually maybe do it better before I add these lines. Yeah, I think that was better. So again, I could just kind of select that surface, click on sketch, click convert entities, yes, but also the inner loops. And then just for reference, I'm gonna use this circle, and then I'm gonna take all of it and copy, select this surface, edit component, sketch, copy, paste, and then you get the entire sketch, but it's not lined up properly. So then you click move entities, and you can also like adjust the coordinates and everything, but the reason I've kind of put the sketch in there so I can reference it right to the middle of it, and then it's just perfectly in place right away. And now we can also extrude all of these up to there. Yeah, that's perfect. And then from that point forward, I only need to make the holes and add like the water pumping and everything, you know. But also let's add this to it though, because we're also gonna add that to the same oil pan, and it is basically like the outer line to actually make sure that everything is like fully seized up. But let's also convert those entities. And what I'm gonna do for that is select through all, and that is gonna needs to go through all of the dimensions, and I'm gonna do that on both sides to make sure that it's just kind of like surrounding everything. There you go. Let's see, because I feel like I could have made a little bit of a difference there. Let's add the cut extrude. I'm thinking about maybe like adding this hole a little bit more towards the outside, so you can, but it would only be like a visual. I think I can keep it like this, to be honest with you. So let's first just add like the additional spacers, I guess, that we need for the engine block to fully align with everything. I need to cut it in half still. Convert entities. up to surface, attach it right there, and then do the same on the other side. And for that, we basically gonna take this, select the engine block, use edit components, select this surface, basically convert entities, and then select all of the hole patterns that need to line up. And then we can take all of those and basically cut extrude in the engine block to about, I don't know, let's say something like that. You don't want to see them like fully come out of the engine block, but those will be like threaded studs and everything in there. And so you can you don't have to like screw them all the way through. The only thing that I actually should still add is the oil and lubrication lines that are gonna be within everything. So then the next video we can just fully focus on making these different subcomponents and stuff. So the motor oil is gonna be sprayed from underneath, I wanna say. Usually that's the case where you have like these railings and everything sitting in there. And then you have like nozzles that are constantly like spraying the bearings and the crankshaft and everything. Also the side of the piston walls. So there will usually be like one big channel that is right down the middle here, where like the main oil line and everything are sitting, and then there could be like little sub channels sitting in different spaces where you have like nozzles that are like fully like jetting oil into the cylinder walls and everything to make sure that everything maintains its lubrication. But in our case, I'm gonna add like one main oil line down the center of the block, and from there gonna be like 3 nozzles, I want to say, like one pointing directly down onto the crankshaft, and then 2 to the sides, 1 to each like cylinder wall. So let's make that last tube, and then that will be everything for this video tutorial. But let's kind of see it from the side view, where everything is like intersecting and everything, because that is also like a good opportunity to kind of use that non-used space, if that makes sense, to kind of incorporate that into it. So that's kind of why I want to look at it from the center, and then use this as a convert entity. And then from here, let's draw a line to the top, and that is 47 millimeters. So let's say in about here, if you would have like a 20 millimeter radius, and but we also need to take into consideration that it can't come into contact with any of those like cylinder walls. Right here it wouldn't be good because it would already like flow right through it. You can actually see the piston itself, so we need to raise it still. And from this point forward, it is no longer like intersecting with the actual pistons or the cylinder walls and anything. But then you can also see that it is interacting with the hole for the actual water pump. So and this should be tinier, let's say maybe like 15 millimeters, and then something like that. Maybe a little bit bigger, like if we put it here, say 17.5, And then let's say this will be 22.5. I think this will be good. I don't think it will. Oh, I think it will still interfere with that bar right there. Drag it down a little bit. If it sits right there and I make this one 20, there we go. That should fit perfect. And then we're gonna add it from this part all the way to the end of the motor, like so. And maybe I can remove like this fillet right here because it's probably not gonna do too much anymore. And then do add like a fillet to the outer ring section right there, something like that. And 5 is probably like the biggest that we'll get to. In that case, let's just keep it at that. And then we're gonna cut extrude out everything that is within that pipe. Make sure that everything is still centered. Kind of looks a little bit off balance, but I think it's just a play of the eyes with one of the pistons kind of overlapping the other. And then from this point, this is, by the way, also cutting off the water. So no, I don't think it is. Not fully, at least. It will kind of still allow it to kind of like flow through it and to the sides. Yes, no, that's perfect. Let's also add the fillet to the other side. Maybe we'll get to that in a later point then, if it allows us to kind of add a little bit more of a fillet range to it. And then from here, we need to add the holes to the basically like to the whole chamber. And let's also again like use that side part. So what we can see here is that if we rotate this piston, then it actually isn't like fully getting down towards this section. So if we were to kind of like use this, like place a nozzle right here that would kind of like squirt out the motor oil and everything, then it would, I think it would work pretty good actually, because the rotation of the pistons and everything would just throw motor oil everywhere anyway. But if we have like one nozzle directly directed here, but then kind of pointing a little bit more upward towards like the bottom end of the piston, then it would kind of spray it around, you know, during out this whole like combustion chamber. So I'm gonna go for that, to make one hole that is like to the side from here, but also at like a 60-degree angle from the center point, and then one hole that's just straight down until the pumps here. So what I want to do is actually get into the right plane. Let's convert entities on the sidelines of this pipe. If I can also get the top one. There you go. And then from that point forward, if you would also select these surfaces, we can find like the midpoints and basically place the nozzle there. So that would mean that we would need to put them right there. So let's cut those off. And then let's say like a 2mm hole, I would say. And then cut extrude. And then up to surface, but which surface? I think, no, I don't think it should be up to surface though. Let's keep it blind, but let's extrude from the surface. There you go. Good. Then the other direction, and I want it to be maybe 50 or something. Shouldn't be too extreme. There we go. So now you can see here like these holes that would basically like allow the high pressure like motor oil to be pumped out through those. And then we're gonna do the same on the other bank, but also make them point down. So let's start off with the same sketch, I guess. So we can select that same cut extrude. But instead, we're just gonna take those circles and move them onto that level. So let's take these. Move entities from 2 right there. And then with that, we can take those and do the same thing again. So cut extrude from surface, this surface, select which contours you want it to cut. So now we have motor oil going through both sides of the pistons and everything to the banks. Let's see if you can also see it here. There you go. And now for the final part, we're only going to add it to the bottom section right here. And I've seen also some motor producers do it directly onto the parts where the crankshaft is rotating, so we could just throw it in there, I guess. Cut extrude from here, and let's draw a line like down the middle, and let's say right here in the middle. Oh, let's also do like a convert entities on all those sections so you can find those middle points. And then we also know that this is basically the center point for this crankshaft, or for that connecting rod I should say, and this is the next one. So basically we want to have one of those points in there for each one of them. everywhere like lines cross, that's where we're gonna have like those nozzles. So now we got all of those holes selected. Now let's cut extrude all of them up until that point where we need it to. So now we got all of those holes also lined up with the actual the bearings and everything within the engine block. But now I'm kind of looking into if you would actually need to add some outer walls to it, or that this, because I feel like there will be like intersecting parts where there's not like actually like a full hole or anything, you know. So like you can see here, this hole doesn't have like any surrounding to it, and I do feel like we're gonna need some of that. So yeah, let's add that still, and that's the actual last thing to do. Let's select this surface once more, and then before we do that, let's also cut out all of the rest of the cylinder walls and things that we don't need, because I feel like that's also gonna help out a little bit with aligning everything. So we're gonna take these again. That's weird though. Part one, and then let's also do that here. So now we kind of cleared those out, and now you can kind of see those holes portraying from the engine block. But I think it would be kind of handy to have like a rail or something right there in the middle that would, or would this actually be better still? I don't know. Let's just make the channels for it. So I'm gonna take all of those outer sketches and stuff that we don't need, remove those. And then we'll only be left with the sketches themselves. And actually we probably don't need it there. I think there will be a solid block between the bearings and stuff. But then we can take this whole line. Let's take these two out again and click offset entities. I think 5 would be sufficient. And then let's extrude boss base them from this surface. But instead of keeping them like that, let's offset them something like that. And are there any parts where the piston could still enter? That's it basically for the engine block. For the oil pan, we didn't change anything to the crankshaft or the pistons or the connecting rod in this video. I wanted to showcase in this video how you make like the rudimentary engine block a little bit more sophisticated by adding also the water cooling for it. So here you can see like the water inlet, and then the water would kind of like flow through all of the passes of the cylinders and everything, and then would be able to exit here. And then we will also add like pumps in it and belt drives and everything to it, so that we can actually add the pumps that would drive those things on. And we've also added the cooling or the channeling, I should say, the piping, the lubrication channels and everything for engine oil. So that is basically what you can see also here. That is one of the 3D printers finishing up behind me. So I'm gonna restart that before I get out of here. And then also one of the final things that we've added was with the oil pan and everything, was also to make sure that everything fits together and that it is also actually capable of being bolted down by like some standardized bolt patterns. I'm also looking into creating a system where I could actually scale this down and actually 3D print it in real life to make like maybe like a scale model version this big of it. But also before I do that, I actually want to figure out how big the car around it is going to be, because then I might actually be able to use it in the future. But yeah, these type of things make me excited. I really love doing this, and I just can't wait to continue on this journey. But these type of projects get me really excited, and I just love this. I just can't wait to kind of continue on further in the process and seeing what else it kind of brings to it. In the next video, what I will be adding is actually the belt drive system, where we actually, to the side of the motor, this is the front section of the motor, so I'll probably be doing it here, where we add all the auxiliary pumps and everything to it. I'm not going to add like the pumps in detail, but I just want to make like place for it where we can add like also the starter motor to the crankshaft, and just do all those type of auxiliary things. And then in the video afterward, or maybe even in the same video, it just depends on how long that takes, I will be adding the cylinder heads. And so also those will be then added to the belts and everything, so that's why I also need the belt drive first. But yeah, this is getting good. I really like the way that this is kind of taking shape, and then also we're gonna design a full car around it, you know. So this is not just gonna be the motor, but we're actually gonna make the rest as well. That's everything that I wanted to add to this video. Please also make sure to like and leave a subscribe to everything if you want to stay up to date on the latest additions and everything to this project. I can't wait. And also let me know if there are any questions in the comment section. My name is Veldboom, and see y'all soon. I'm out.